It's somewhere like it.
But it's still sometimes it's funny that are doing place and work in the process of trying. Yes, I know. You told me 20 minutes ago. And I left. And now I'm going. Stop talking.
That was built in 15 years ago.
Yeah, check one of the boxes.
Yeah, this is stupid.
So the entire bottom was saturated.
I think it gets
So
confused
this was
where
speaking of chores,
Yeah, somebody was.
there's going to be a 1 week
well,
4 weekends.
How do we tell things like you have to take it all the way off?
I don't
Took
think
it
it's
from the bottom. I took it just a vacuum.
All right, folks, it is 7 o'clock.
So nobody except for I'm
So
watching.
now you can see stuff.
Am I going to need my gavel?
Yes, you might.
Don't
You trying to get our
All the meeting being 7 o'clock. Let's come to order. We have one member absent, so we will seek an alternate close. Who is up?
Brendan is next.
Would you like to join us, Brendan?
I was working on my email.
No electronic devices. That's right. We know better now.
And Ben, if you'd like to come up to the table, you're welcome to also. And Mike, you're first on the agenda, so
It's all coming together.
we're going to delay minutes until after Mike's presentation.
So we're closing in on this match.
Both times.
Sat down with Greg the other day. He had a lot of good comments. It's actually kind of fun to be marking off things that we've already done and making sure that the master plan itself reflects the results of town meeting. So I haven't made changes to those. There's a couple of objectives that are almost dated with what happened. Consider mixed use in 17 and 18. We changed the zoning to. This is a tool to work through the implementation. So the idea is that out of all of this, and we still have community facilities that we have a 70% draft on. I got community facilities questions that ties into CIP work. But the idea is what do we want to crystallize as those things that are high priorities from the planning board's perspective?
Are these the at the end of each chapter, the objectives, and you grouped them into a place? That is really confusing. Thank you.
Our job is to prioritize.
However, so we've done this in a bunch of different ways in the past. We've done it in a kind of group session. We've got in 2 weeks as well time to talk about this. One way that we've done it is we've sent these back, and folks have prioritized, and we've compiled those scores. So
we're not doing this.
You can do it any way you want. You can walk through it. I like the idea that you go back and you think about it. You've got your notes, you quantify it, you give it to Lois in a week. I bring it back to the office, score it, and then we jump into our conversation.
Clarification. We are ranking these by importance, priority, from what perspective?
From the planning board's perspective. But to build to that, it can be individual perspective. We score it, and then we talk about each one.
So there'll be like in objective number 1, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So we've done it in different ways. We've given it a merit score. We've given it just a check, and I've tallied the checks. Sometimes it's just an ongoing. There's no priority to it because you've got to be doing it all the time. What the idea is that we've got our executive summary. We've got our vision chapter that kind of brings together those vision statements. But what is in all of the things that we've got in the master plan, what do you want to emphasize, and how do you want to set up those priorities? So sometimes we will look at the priorities high being the next 2 years, or 2 to 5 for medium, 5 plus for long. So it could be kind of a chronological thing. It's however you want to do it. I wanted to give kind of the base. We could set up how we score it. I could come back with the scores. Then you're going to have, I didn't get it that way, I looked at it that way, or we come up with that qualitative narrative. Here are the 10 top priorities for this process. Some maybe a high priority and it's a little longer term process, but this is the start to be able to kind of get a handle on what's important to you as important.
So let's have a discussion for a minute about how we think we should grade these. For do you think it's better that we all do it in the same way? To me, the next 2 years, 2 to 5, after 5 makes a lot of sense. But then we could also have different people do it different ways. It sounds like.
If we all use number 2 pencils, it could be easier for him to score. Or whatever.
Fill in the bubble.
Please. No, so if we do it, we all do it the same with the same.
I think we should all have the same process first.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a non-chronological. This is a high priority for us. I don't care how long it's medium or low. For that 0 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 plus.
So this
2 ways.
right, and this way you got out here doesn't have any chronological component
Because every board wants to do it different stuff.
And then you have ongoing.
So there are certain things like support responsible agriculture. Yes, that's we want to that's kind of no brainer. We wanted to mention it here in the master plan, but it's not something that is the high. We need to do that in the next 2
Right.
years.
It's not like farms are going to get shut down 2 years from now if we don't.
So do we agree on a time horizon? Is that what you were suggesting?
That was one suggestion.
I like objectives for that. So high was 2 years.
0 to 2.
Oh, I see.
0 to 2. Medium is
2 to
5. 5 plus.
It takes a while to see.
And within the next 2 years, if I decided that the habitats are just incredibly important in the next 2 years, and the other things are less important in the next 2 years, I don't know, the 1 there instead of the 2 or
So we could add that variable to I think it's easier if you're checking one or the other, and then we can add the variables when we talk about it after we score it. But you could also put the note that this is the most important topic.
Maybe 4 stars or something.
Mike, now, even though this is a document that's taken a long time working on, what is the projected lifespan of the pasture?
5 to 10.
what's the impact?
So-
Following up on that, what's the impact?
keep that in mind when you decide on the terms.
I mean, halfway through the
Halfway
this
through
was
the
done.
5 years.
Supposed to be done.
I think it's from the day you adopt.
Right. It's as
So
of
it
the
just
day
keeps
before.
gets
Right.
resetting the
We
clock.
can go back and see what
That
should
sounds
have
like
been for 20
cheating.
5 years.
It's life.
So if it's like 5 to 10 years, and low priority is after 5 years, that's like being pushed to the back. Or it'd be kind of nice if we had time.
There are some things that are nice to have time. There's a lot in it. I think a lot of the zoning changes and site reg. That's clearly 0 to 2 as you're in the midst of it.
There's a lot of things on this list. Realistically, we aren't going to accomplish all.
So how do we, when we lock it all down, we really focus on those things. This is the one, you can get that out of going through the chapters, but what do you want to emphasize? And one of the issues too is who's going to do it. So there's a conversation about that. Probably after we score it, who's going to do it? There's you can also think about how we load about the conservation commission with our top 7 priorities. But,
It's not going to be this board.
Yeah, once you get out beyond 2 to 5 years, right?
Well,
Some
it's
of
only
those-
changes.
it's going to be the planning board.
Ordinance changes, regs change.
And it's your best shot at the day that you're producing the implementation chapter as to who you think would be doing this and that. And the reason why implementation chapters were added to master plans is sad often. How do you get them to be used and carried around?
So there's an implementation chapter. Is that by statute or by constitution?
It's an option. It's by statute.
And what we're doing here, the result of this, that will become patients.
Yes. So and it's not long. It's we can include everything, but you've got that in all the chapters. It's one of those things, kind of a narrative, but then also a scoring of here's the top 10 things.
You should keep in mind too that this might be the only part of the master.
Maybe the executive summary
Yeah.
and the vision chapter. Yeah.
Or maybe the town manager.
In some of the training things from the municipal association, they talk about yearly evaluation of the master plan. Is that part of implementation?
I think that's part of going back to the implementation chapter, and it makes it easier, to be honest. What have we done? Here are our priorities. So that's a nice process to kind of keep it up front. And there are a lot of things in it, so we also have to stick with it. So if we gave you a week and you just brought the hard copies in and I grabbed them and we tallied them, that would give us a good kind of way to transparently review the feelings of the board.
And you said that this does not reflect the zoning changes that we have already made.
No, I didn't change any of the continue to consider versus consider changes.
Right. Yeah.
So, but we are also there's more work to be done on the zoning side.
Right. Promote these. Okay. Great. So we're all set that low is 5 years plus, medium is 2 to 5, and high is 0 to 2.
And add a note if it doesn't fit.
I think I'm going to try to prioritize it within each color. ABC or something.
All right. How would that work?
Well,
Choose one. Conserve large blocks of number 2, the first one. How would you score that in your ABC idea?
Well, let's go down to the 5th one. Evaluate Class 6 roads with permit should be converted to Class A trails. Maybe I think that's a medium term thing, but it's really important within the medium term and less more important than something else.
I see. So in each column you could put A, B, or C. A is high, high rated. B, and C is less.
Kind of 3-dimensional. I like it.
Okay, I
Three-dimensional.
understand.
In the interest of actually getting it done, let's not overcomplicate it.
So how about this? 2 stars or 2 X's if it's more important.
Is a copy of that available to the public?
Yeah, I had everyone.
Here, I don't.
There you go. That was my other one, so I did get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Do all these documents go on the website? Everything that gets used? I mean, I know that's not the same thing.
Something like this, yes, after the event, might send us something.
I can certainly send you. This is what the planning board is using. Quantify.
Yeah, this is more of a work in progress. Kind of
This is one sheet.
thing.
But I can send it over to you. I thought it was better to kind of walk through it and change different variations to it.
And there's a difference. We're required to log and keep anything that is part of a hearing, but not for legislative work sessions.
So would a 1 week deadline work? So I can
Works for
have
me.
them next week and say end of the day on Tuesday. So on Wednesday we come over and grab all of it that we've done, sort of.
So we have to get these, drop them off to Lois at the town office.
If you would like me to bring it to town, I mean, I can do that.
Let's talk when it comes to. We always
Okay.
have something.
Where are we going to bring them? Town office is closed officially except for sale on Tuesdays.
People could either come to my house just close by or the town office.
What happens if I mailed it? Or if I scanned it and
If you scan it, I'll ask Mandy for help with printing it. It's fine.
Scan it and you can scan it to me along.
What's the town hall open on Tuesday?
Sam opens at noon on Tuesday.
if I mail it, who do I mail it to?
It's not.
Josh.
If you
You know,
just
give it to me and drop it.
I can
and drop
also
it like
just come and
newspaper
collect it. I can come and collect it. I'm going to go up and
We have the technology to scan.
All right. Anything else on this? Can we move on?
Great. So, community facilities. We took a deep dive into your it's actually kind of a good time before we jump into the CIP, having some of that background. But I was hoping to kind of get firsthand what the kind of the key issues that you want to highlight in community facilities strategy. And it's interesting just coming in, hearing some of the staffing issues. And, staffing issues were highlighted in reports. Clearly, for local communities, that's an issue. How much in the community facilities strategy do you want us to address that? Because it's, it's one of your
ongoing
topics.
problem.
That's chronic. That's everywhere. I mean, restaurants and businesses and, they can't keep staff anywhere.
It
Oh,
is.
doesn't mean we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking.
Right, but we gotta figure out how it affects us specifically.
What community facilities are suffering staff?
So can I have a welcome?
Absolutely.
We have a highway department that's not functioning. How do we build that up, or should I, as a selectman, suggest we go to a private system where we hire Wheeler Brothers to come in and do our town road services? Right, I think these are the most important issues in our place right now. But I don't have answers.
And I guess it's hoped that the master plan at least elevates the conversation. And it helps when you're having that, trying to figure those things out as we described it in the master plan solution.
So what we're doing is saying it's a problem. Everybody knows it's a problem. We need to get our act together and try to figure out how to deal with it. But we're not going to be able to tell them. We're not going to be
I think it's
proposing a
highlighting the
solution.
issue. The other kind of things that the community facilities can help, and honestly the CIP can help, is describing the needs, for how you have equipment, how you're addressing capital reserves, that type of thing. It's a longer term discussion of overall needs. It's not what the CIP is saying in the next 6 years. This is what we identify where those expenditures would be. But it's all kind of a continuum into discussing those needs.
The CIP is capital only, so that does not include labor.
But for that grader or the no-turn mower, things like that, those are community facilities. Those are needs of.
Right. I'm not saying the labor isn't part of community facilities, but it's not
CIP.
It's not capital.
Well, if we don't have anyone to drive the mower, we don't need to buy one.
Which we don't have anybody drive this new road grader for $800,000. Why are we buying it? Right? Might as well go hire Weaver Brothers, let them put their equipment on.
Why would that be cheaper? I mean, I guess
I don't know. I just know that it's available. Where the other options, at least we've been trying, and we're not finding them. Is it because we're not offering enough, or are we supposed to send them to college before we hire them?
Not to bring everybody down, but the community facilities chapter can also talk about we did a survey. A lot of folks talk about these trails, that connection to the trails is in a couple of chapters, but talking about the trails committee and that type of thing as a recreational facility. So we've gone through, piled all that. Community facilities wise, though, I just wanted to ask, what do we want to emphasize beyond those issues? We could say, okay, there's an issue with staffing. These are the highway department needs. We also describe broadband and the fact that we have a lot more information about broadband
And cellular and cell cellular.
Transfer station.
Yep. So recycling, I know that there's been some discussion over the last few years of trying to get other towns for household hazardous waste, and this is a place to kind of build that conversation and to okay, this is what it costs. This is how you go to DPS for some funding for that. There's out-of-pocket costs. There's a couple of examples from towns. So we've seen that in some of the reports that's been. Some staff have kicked tires. Still have the staff here that have been talking about household hazardous waste.
You can speak with Mr.
I'm sure that committee.
Okay.
So yes, we have been lobbying for a hazardous waste day, but are running into a roadblock with select.
Is it about money?
So I
yes,
could.
It is about money.
So I could bring that information to the community, and it is about money. But when you have a couple of towns together, sometimes that helps. Sometimes that reduces a little bit of liability. It's hard to say when you've got a line of cars for the first household hazardous collection to stop them at 11:30 because you get your max.
That's it. That's what we ran into the last time.
Exactly.
So you don't do it often.
It gets so much better when you've got that annual, even the lines at Concord aren't that bad. That one Saturday in October.
Well, the other interesting thing that we're running into is this town overwhelmingly supported recycling at 4 years ago at town meeting, and they vocalized that they wanted, no matter what, they wanted us to be on the forefront of recycling stuff. And since then, the bottom has fallen out with a lot of the recyclables where we have to pay, or we just, it's more feasible to put it in the tipping, I mean, it's not worth anything. So we'll do that effort.
Do you separate?
Oh, yeah. We separate everything. Everything. Glass, tin, aluminum.
5 kinds of plastic.
5 kinds of plastic.
Cardboard.
Mixed
Cardboard's
paper.
the most money we make.
That's the only thing that's really making any money.
Well, the aluminum cans.
Oh, cool. Yeah. the
I
analysis.
think that the place for this chapter, though, is to still, describe how there's been a lot of support for it. The market is dead, but just to kind of keep that conversation, on the forefront for that next, the next review as to whether you're going to keep on doing it.
Playing fields is part of the school budget. Soccer fields and so that's not part of this.
So we did touch on some of the numbers relative to schools because you need to describe, these are your playing fields, and that's so we talked again about school, and that's all part of your recreational base. A lot of people mention more the river and trails, but those soccer fields are important.
There's been a lot of movement in town to have a building for access for after-school gatherings for children. Not a daycare, more of a community center. Right? Well, that's the question. Whether it's at in the town hall, at the parish hall, but town hall they just spent a lot of money moving the floor. Parish hall they got business going on with it. I mean, childcare, after school childcare going on over there, so it doesn't. That conflicts. It's just
So maybe there should be. I mean, it's really early stage. It hasn't got a real form in what is needed. So, but it feels like that there is recognition that there is something.
it's driven by the rec committee, whatever that is. I mean, outfit, group, whatever. That they need a place for, especially like in inclement weather, for kids to go hang out.
So there's takes a long time to build a base for projects like that. Master plan is a place where that starts. There's funding sources out there, so USDA really does like funding resource centers. We actually wrote a support letter in the town of Hillsborough with one of the earmark receiving from Shooting's office because it's been something that's worked its way from the 2018 master plan. And then some local groups kind of grabbed on it, so that ended up with some more pre-engineering that then gets to the point where you can ask for some better money. But it all started back in the 2018 Hillsborough master plan. So if you want us to talk about that, because there was some talk about recreational facilities to support survey, and we can certainly talk with the recreation. It's a little box.
Yeah.
That says, that plants the seed for it. And I'm always looking in a document like this when I'm asked to write a support letter. Hey, we got this opportunity for funding. Where is it talked about? Oh, it's in the master plan. Oh, we had it on a regional development strategy. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be came from somewhere.
You say that word again, regional strategy?
Comprehensive economic development strategy. The SEDS.
Is that something that's done?
No.
No. Ours is done.
Too late.
Ours is done.
That's a regional thing.
So towns can be eligible for certain funds. So USDA or Economic Development Administration projects identified SEDS, it's easier to get funding.
Well, maybe getting involved in that program is something that should be in our implementation chapter too.
So I think that's it.
We like fun.
But
Tell me all.
if there's an express need, and sometimes the planning horizon's 20 years, where do we start? So so I can add some extra. EMT ambulance service. What's the current? And so this is what's the current?
What
Don't
happens?
get injured in Canterbury.
It's going to take 20 minutes for an ambulance to get.
Who's
Is
coming?
it Canterbury?
Boscawen, Belmont, Loud. It's a municipal compact, and it's been investigated several times. It's not the cost of the equipment; it's the cost of the personnel. It's you're pushing $750,000 a year to get the personnel to have in part-time coverage. Is what I would say.
Same exact situation in many towns. Compacts. It's the 20 response rate. Is that something you want us to describe? Talk about in a way that there are options, or is that just been too far into just your annual conversation?
Well, again, you're talking about planting a seed, and 10 years it may.
There was something that people talked about when we were having these, discussion meetings about this. I think there's mentioning, we don't have a solution. It's a
Something
problem
on the
that people,
horizon.
yeah, it's a problem that people care about.
There's something that could be one where I've looked in the past, Swansea, Ashford Hudson stuff. They have this fast calls. They have fast team for so if there's a call for a need, paramedic will go in the vehicle, shoot out to the scene while the ambulance rallies their personnel and gets their staff on the ambulance and everything else and drives out to the scene. They're already quickly there, and then the ambulance can come. You got transport, fine, not. So the use of fast squad could be a benefit. Especially if you're
Is there some truth to the accident rate over on our portion of I-93 costs us? Or
I don't know what that.
I asked this question, and I feel like somebody told me that actually no, that's not the biggest drain on our emergency resources, but I can't recall that was. Might have been Scott.
I can't.
I was very surprised as well, but I'm pretty sure that is the answer to my question.
well, whether it's the biggest or the second biggest or the third biggest one is, because it's a federal road, you can think of can't make someone else pay for that.
I believe the answer to that is sadly no.
But what about,
Through Canada.
what I've heard is the biggest ambulance draw when it's open is Canada. But also, emergency services going to the drug.
We'll have to check over.
Do you know more about the cost of emergency services on 900?
I know it's a constant drain on us. It's, I think, our most popular run is out there. But we haven't been getting that detail on the reports that we get from the chief, so I will try and ask that question.
And how would we address this?
I think it's noted, and it gives you that room to pursue it if you want.
So what we would like to know from the chief then is what are the top 5 or whatever
Top 3.
calls per service?
I'd try to go top 10 or something, as far down the list as feasible.
Well, for us, for planning purposes and for CIP, I think it's important to know something like, is the drug rehab getting funds from the town of Canterbury? And should we allow more things like that?
And so now that's a little more complicated because many of those calls are responded probably by Belmont or and so does that show up on the chief's records or does that come through the
Do we get billed for it?
municipal compact billing? I have no idea how
I'm
that
not sure we pay anything for Belmont to show up, but we you do obviously pay for Pennacook, and I have to admit I missed the meeting last week. It's probably something I shouldn't have missed. I was discussing this with them. But I think it's about to jump. Cost.
Well, there have been recommendations for 2 person, 2 additional people, but that's a huge number
2 additional people on what, the emergency?
for to add to the mutual aid.
To add to Canterbury staff.
Is there some way to indicate that, on the one hand, the master plan is all the things we want to do, but the limitations seem big, very, very great, and it seems like it would be fair for people moving into town to know that.
It's the issues that all small towns do, and the more rural, so you get more rural, and it's even more difficult. The volunteer fire, volunteer EMTs, cost of that, cost of the service. So I think it's one of those things you address, but it's every little town these days.
I feel like we may have wandered a little bit further.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's part of it. Like just like the service calls for the police department. And we heard what we were talking about zoning changes down by exit 18, concerns about coverage and additional coverage, some more growth down there. Counter that with more activity is safer, but you still have more demands for police and fire with steady growth.
My impression is that there's a fair amount of police response to activity on the river. Tourists, people just hanging out on the river and drinking too much.
I suppose there's that. I think it's more that we spend a lot of time going down in the beach, sure. That's a nightly thing.
That's much ado.
Well, yeah, both the Oxbow Pond, river area, and then if you get down by Geno's, go down Sand Hill Road down.
So the last thing I want to make sure that I've got everything that you need to have in here for the community power discussion. And so I know that Energy had some information that we want to make sure that's here. So
one of the big thing they brought up was a zoning change to allow commercial solar fields in some part of town.
So that
would be the industrial zone.
We don't have any rules.
Right, and our zoning says if you don't have a rule that says you can do it, you can't do it.
Well, we've had 2 commercial operations come from the board. Both times said at consultation, yeah, you could do that. We would, we would be interested in seeing your project, not say. I mean, we were receptive to it.
So
there's also a 3-phase power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not as practical as one might like.
Right, but if it's over on, if this was in the industrial zone and the commercial zone, it was not.
So this would be the place to have that statement from the board's perspective to support it. That could lead to clarifying and having that be zoning, but it's supporting their efforts. So I'll make sure that I've got everything that I need. Like I said, 70%, 80%. Get a draft to you, so you have it. We'll plan on the 1 week that I gave you guys for scoring for us to finish the draft.
Is there anything else from community power that
Well, I'm wondering if we should talk to Howie
Yeah, I think so. Or who was it? Was it Lenore?
They had put together some materials last fall, and I'll make sure I'll check in.
Well, we're looking for a next step, whether it's going to.
Oh, you're on the
batteries,
board.
whether it's batteries, in people's homes, subsidizing panels on private roofs, or better cell phone coverage. Gonna, diversify. Just looking for our next step.
Can I coordinate with you over the next few days?
Yes.
That language here supports the work of me, but also can support just like that.
And the whole mess with that heater being resolved.
Yeah.
Grumble.
So this is one of those places if you want to put something in support of that metering to make the whole process work better. This would be that then allows the committee when that time comes to express your support for it in the master plan.
So then we'll get wording for word.
If you're gonna build a nuclear reactor, it's all road.
We have it in a form for you to store. So that's all I had tonight.
That's all you've got for us.
Yeah,
CIP.
That's it. CIP. I think we need to talk about getting started on the CIP. John, talk a bit. With some concern about the funding on the part of the CIP agreement. We'll figure it out no matter what. Because you need to have the CIP in place. One, typical calendar year, it's nice to be doing it now, so the budget, so we can get the budget season done, but also to provide any support relative to the current cap.
As we had evaluate master plan progress yearly, should have CIP implementation.
The very first time you do it, there's more to it because you're laying out your 6 years. In theory, every year, sometimes do it every year. You lop off a year you have here. Just modify your spreadsheet. It's not that big to have that, and it's good to you need to, especially with the supporting your building permit cap, you need to go through that process.
What's our process for whether it's every year, every 2 years, or whatever? What's our process for remembering whose jobs?
Well, that's why I was thinking if we put it in the implementation chapter, maybe there should be a yearly tasks part of the implementation.
We should really have like a project management system
Well, if we
for
had
the
a
planning board, but that's a whole lot
Well,
of work.
if there were a staff planner in the town, that would be the obvious job, or if it's the town administrator's job, or somebody say, it's June 1st, you guys should be doing that.
Well, place to start is have a list of things we're supposed to do, right?
Practically, I think it's our job to
Right, but this is volunteer. The chair moves, changes from time to time, and Greg's list is not going to work for the next person or whatever. So I don't think that's.
Well, that's why I'm saying the list should be.
I
in the
recognize the
implementation
problem
chapter.
inherent.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
That we evaluate the master plan progress every year. But every year we update the CIP. I'm sure there are other things that should be.
It's a springtime typically in towns with their CIP.
So after town meeting.
Yeah. And it's it's nice to then be done so then for budget season you block off that year, you got your 6 years. Again, it's advisory document. It can help department heads, it can help budgeting. That's our sell for road agents, for want to get some support for their 5-year road program, having the CIP. It's easier to describe and tell me.
I'm asking about, could that be included in that land use? Sorry,
I was not paying attention.
It is the kind of thing that person would be asked to do, unfortunately, was going to take it, just declined. So
We lost our lady.
sort of back to square
Second
one.
one.
But what I was
No, that's the first one. Or some something.
we're still where we're at. It's Mandy and Cal, and we cobble things together. Joshua was. It made me think. At some point, it would be good to have written down, all the things that had to be done for zoning amendments, because that really is a process with its own calendar. This would be just something else to sort of tack onto that. That there's an annual calendar of things that I should get to, and it's now going to include, the CIP and we don't have that document yet, but that's not rocket science.
I think I hear a volunteer.
Well, I told Sam perhaps I would get something together about getting ready for
I mean, like, I'm kind of joking about the project management system, but I'm also kind of not joking about the
No,
project
no, it's
management
important.
system. It would, in fact, be the tool for this job, and it would be something that would hand down from, one planning board to the next iteration of a planning board.
Yes.
I think you could just volunteer.
So what is that? What do you mean?
A project management software is a system that is designed to manage tasks, and particularly to manage tasks among groups of people, but it certainly could be used to manage tasks for the planning board about things like, recurring calendar instances for, hey, the town meeting is coming up in XYZ amount of time. You should probably do anything that you need to, get onto the voting roster.
I think a list by month.
Was Logan talking about software?
Yes,
Yeah.
Would do that.
But
But you'd still have to start with something.
let's start with
You
the
would,
list.
you would still have to start with a list,
Yeah.
but a system that's sort of automated, highlighting the things that you needed to be working on in the future would probably be really useful, because a list.
Yeah.
Well, it is a glorified calendar. That's kind of the point.
Well, I use one of these for my work, and it's a lot more than. I mean, yes, I suppose it's a glorified calendar in some fashion, but
Very
it's
glorified.
not glorified.
So if one were to, go research this, what
Project management software.
is there any that you've done?
I mean, I use one.
The
I've
free one.
used a couple of them. There are free ones. They're usually not designed for collaboration at the free level, but they're also not terribly expensive, even at the collaborative level. Like, my company spends maybe $500 a year on this software.
Okay, so
Our role is to say, hey, this is a good idea, and then there's a lot of good ideas. See
If this
what
is something
sticks.
that we're interested in, there are ways to try it out on a freeware basis, and then you can make decisions from there as to whether it's worth spending some money to have more.
all right.
And I know this is something else from.
So
Yes.
1 week I'll get a draft of the law.
We'll get these back.
There'll still be the one thing that we're missing in this analysis is the community facilities check. So we'll do it at the same time. We can do that at the meeting because there are specific things there. So we can talk about that.
We do have a hearing at our next meeting. But I don't terribly. All right, Mike, thank you very much. Go home.
My daughter is home after the 2 weeks of celebrating our high school graduation days. So she is going to get she's going to get burritos from us.
Does she want a job as a road agent?
Or land use professional.
So we had a job ad out for our office coordinator doing outreach at 130 applicants. Oh. Whittled it down pretty fast to 3 and had a great interview today. So hopefully she says yes. I tried to call her this afternoon. We're going to talk tomorrow morning. But you got to be fast.
So what do you pay?
This is 20.
24 an hour. That's not that much.
But it's more than $20 an hour the town of Canterbury sell.
It's hard to
You'd
compete.
be the first one screaming about the taxes going up.
He's not wrong.
How would you know?
I
sell
heard you
the
screaming about
flexibility.
things.
An interesting work.
Can you send one of your rejects to apply for a land use position?
Yeah, number 138.
It's a tough position to fill. It really is. We have high expectations of experience and nuances, and
It's not simple.
it's not simple. There's a lot of demand. You know, again, a lot of small towns are looking for that. So, you know, some of the models we've seen though is sharing those positions. And
You have the circuit rider option. How much was that? $26 an hour? There was a base fee and then
there's all different ways to do that. You know, we've done minutes for towns when they've run into situations where, and I've actually had someone who was doing minutes for a couple different towns, lived in New York State. We sent a Zoom to, and she found a job. You know, there are different ways to kind of work around it. Maybe even call them together, talk about that.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Previous minutes of May 28th. There are copies of them here. They were circulated earlier. Lois had a question, I believe, that I was unable. Did you still have a question, Lois?
I don't remember, did I?
I thought you were on the phone, you just said you had a question.
Absolutely. I didn't know whether I was supposed to make 6 copies. I hadn't heard anybody about the changes, so I just
I
wanted
think they look great.
Yeah.
I moved minutes from May 28th if there aren't any amendments.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Brendan? You're a voting member today?
Let's see.
You can't, yeah, because you were here.
I wasn't here either. Abstain.
So 2 abstentions. And that brings us to rules and procedures update. Okay, we've been working on these for quite some time now, actually not that long, months. And I have overspent our town council budget on our updates to regulations. So in the future, we'll be trying to use the legal services from the municipal association, which are, well, I guess we pay some membership fee, but we don't get billed for it. So we will be moving forward on this. What is on our list at the moment is minutes. We had come very close on the language, but we now have approval for adding that sentence about members may submit edit requests to the secretary. The secretary can organize the edits for the meeting, but not distribute them until the meeting. So that was approved by town council. We can't vote on these tonight because we didn't do 7 days notice of voting on rules of procedure. But let's make this notice that we will vote on rules of procedure at our next meeting. One of those will be the minutes. The other one is the board may set time limits. I did run this by a municipal association. They approved that language as we had it. Remember, there was concern from the board about violating First Amendment rights. And apparently, legal services and municipal association didn't have a problem with that. That doesn't mean that you can't opinions from legal services and town council are just opinions. So, with something different, research it through. The other one is the board may request individuals that are having private conversations to leave the meeting until done. The municipal association is still reviewing that language. Another one we've talked about is electronic devices in meetings. This came up at the Right to Know class that was held here last week. There's another one. When is it? The 18th. The 18th. And it seems that the town, part of their work on codes of conduct and ethics, they're addressing the issue of electronic devices, and just what it sounds like. I'm going to suggest that we table this for us.
For the code of conduct stuff from the select board anyway. It's on something. We were waiting for the select board to finish a town-wide
on some other things
code
as
of
well.
conduct thing. Yeah.
I think this is an appropriate one because it gets fairly complicated. It may end up that we will not be able to use electronic devices during hearings, but that we can during working sessions. And
when you say electronic devices, are we talking things just cell phones or besides cell phones?
Tablets, laptops. Now that doesn't mean you can't have your cell phone, and if you get a call from your wife, you can go outside and answer it. It's about the perception of having ex parte communication during a hearing. It's very different during a hearing, during a legislative session. You have words on this?
I mean, I think it's frankly pretty stupid. Not being able to pull up a case or a statute in the middle of the
Or a
meeting
map.
is way worse. I mean, I was pulling up the minutes because I don't have that copy of 528 just a second ago, but
I think it's so. Well, we town paid 2 lawyers quite a bit of money to come in and tell us that.
There was a lot of back and forth with them.
Yeah,
I mean, basically what they were saying is, they've seen a lot of towns get sued and then people have to turn their devices together. But, I was like, I don't want to have the paper minutes. I have them on my phone.
Yeah. But that's legislative. That's fine.
Right, but he was also saying stuff like people pulling up research during a hearing, and it's just you don't know if it's a reliable resource. The people, and also the people are texting one another.
These hearings, there's often counsel. They're going to cite cases, and you have no ability to actually pull it up and at the same time. Now we have a one-sided conversation, and that's what's very silly.
That's really good point.
That's a really good point.
The most common thing
it
that
happened
I've
last
got
week.
on my device during any hearing is the Google Maps satellite version of the location that we're talking about. Because, the black and white maps don't give you a ton of context. I don't always know where in town we're even talking about. And
how about we do something like at the beginning or end, or whatever's appropriate of a public hearing? I hereby certify that I haven't texted anyone in the room, or something like that.
I don't know.
I feel like this is going to be addressed by the code of conduct, probably along the lines of that everyone is going to promise as part of the code of conduct not to engage in ex parte communication.
All right, so we're speculating about a lot of things about what the rule will come down. So let's wait until we see what the rules are. But that brings me to this other thing at the Right to Know thing about board members can use your personal knowledge about something, but you're not supposed to do research about the subject.
That's ridiculous. We're not a judicial body, we're a legislative body.
No, but what they said is that I had always been taught that too, and now they're saying, no, you're quasi-judicial.
When you're in a hearing, you're quasi-judicial, which is why they say, so if you think that something is, may have an impact on something, I would say, a Bitcoin factory. So it sounded at that meeting that, so we know we're having a Bitcoin thing coming into exit 18 or on 106 or something. That I can't go look up about the problems of the Bitcoin factory. You know, the draw on infrastructure and power and stuff. I don't, you know, I've read things about it, but
Part of the reason we get elected is that we theoretically know something. So, you know, I happen to drive by Wyvern Road every day and I see the sign that says, you know, this is a private road. So I bring that up in the hearing where it matters to a landowner, and it's like, well, I'm not supposed to bring up.
No, that's
no,
what
that's
that's
your personal experience.
because you know that.
Well, what's the difference between personal experience and like, you know, I
You do
went
research.
and walked up the road and I saw the sign or something.
I know. It's, I mean, I'm bringing this up because I find it very hard to get my head around and understand. But what they were saying. So if you want to know more about it, you tell the applicant that you want to know more about it, and you make them hire an expert that you choose to come in and give you a report
That's
on
not
it.
coursework.
Well, that's what they say.
That doesn't make any logical sense. Like, if you're allowed to use personal knowledge, but you're not allowed to, I don't know, say, Google search the state website that explains some law, like, all that's doing is encouraging people to effectively make stuff up rather than look.
Yeah, it's like encouraging ignorance.
That's
But
ridiculous. That can't possibly be what they actually mean to, like, say.
But there are other bogus websites out there. So if you Google some information, and if the site is erroneous and it's going to push bad information, and you're relying on that bad information as factual.
But pulling your personal knowledge out of your proverbial backside is not better than the
I mean, we did
wide world of interest.
last meeting. Megan quoted something about the New Hampshire Firefighters Association.
I know,
or something
Greg and
like
I
that.
talked about that afterwards. I said, well, what he was saying is she shouldn't have done that. No.
Well, she
Well,
should.
wait. That was legislative. That was not a hearing.
Brandon, what do you think?
I'm not part of these conversations. If I had to guess, they're probably trying to draw a distinction between a board member sort of testifying as to factually what's actually going to happen, and there's a difference between finding out on your own what are the common problems associated with this type of development so that you can question the applicant well about those issues.
Right.
And you showing up and saying, well, this will have 74 decibels of noise, and only a board member is the only one, giving evidence of something that they're not actually. But there's I think, a difference in finding out about something and really having a conversation with the applicant to get them to address that concern, and if they don't address it, to then go get an expert or something like that. And
From now on, I will make all my statements full of questions.
No, but it's sort of like discussion about using soil from SMI. Calling up the SMI and saying, do you have a place we can go to see what your standards are, so we can see where the soils come from, how they're used, how they're treated, stuff like that. And it sounded like what he was saying is that wasn't appropriate.
So maybe we need some more training on some more training. So
I'm also not aware of any cases that actually involve someone criticizing or saying a planning board violated its sort of judicial role.
That's a good point.
You see lawsuits where the planning board has sort of an ambiguous concern, and there's no evidence in the record to support that concern, and then the planning board gets in trouble. But I haven't seen anything saying the planning board can't look for or investigate ahead of anything. Just sort of understand a project better, and then come and require the applicant to meet their burden.
that makes sense.
Right, that makes sense, so you know what questions
that's why
to
it's wrong.
ask.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense, and that's why it's wrong.
So as long as I've known the Canterbury boards, they've been very reluctant to ask for it, to burden an applicant kind of study or coming in to prove it. And so it just makes that much more expensive for the applicant, yes.
Well, I suppose it's like if I see on, conspiracytheory.com,
I love that site.
Well, I did a wedding venue application once, and I think there's a difference between boards saying, hey, I did some research, and the common complaints you get are noise, lighting after a period of time, that kind of stuff. And then you ask the applicant, how loud is this going to be? What steps, what buffers are there? And sort of really into that. And if it's not acceptable, you can have them go to a sound study. You can look for more information. But it's different than if the board came and said, I looked this up, and concert noise will be audible exactly 4.6 miles away in this situation, and the light's going to hit all of these houses, and now you have to sort of disprove that. I think that's the difference between questions about, hey, here's these issues. Can you explain them? Do we need more information? And I'm telling you, I'm testifying that this is what the impact is going to be.
Make everything a question.
Well, and then you have to tell them to prove that they need to prove, that it won't be a problem.
They're doing it.
So that's what I mean. I think there's probably something lost in translation there, or councils being overly cautious, which sometimes they do, and they don't want to get people sued. But
let's see there. One other thing for rules of procedure is precedent conditions. And I have, sorry. So this is from New Hampshire Municipal Association talking about proof of access, which has to be provided by the select board with comment by the planning on proof of access for a subdivision to approve a subdivision. Planning board is prepared to approve a subdivision on a Class 6 road, and the subdivider has all necessary zoning permissions, i.e. frontage variances. The planning board should grant subdivision approval subject to a condition precedent that before the plan will be signed and recorded at the registry of deeds, the subdivider must first obtain approval for the issuance of building permits on the Class 6 road. So we have had requests from town administration that the staff can't track and keep and certify the precedent conditions we put on a subject on an approval. So this, if we say we won't sign it and register it until the precedent condition is met,
Then we just tell them to come back and
then they have to. Then we're not burdening town administration with it. And
so we just say if we have a condition precedent, leaving that aside for a second. If we have a condition and then we say to the applicant, before our chair signs it, you've got to come here and back to us
and show us, yes, show compliance.
But would that hang things up for them?
So now there's a state law that says you cannot require this for state and federal permits that have been applied for, but everything else you can. Yes, of course it's going to hang them up. Of course it's going to. I mean, if they're trying to borrow money and the bank wants to see the registered thing.
I mean, every part of this process is slowing it down, doing something.
Yeah, but I mean, the very organized applicant will tick that off and have it all done before.
I think that's pretty common. chair signs.
Okay, so I will get some language for a rule of procedure for that. Thank you. And let's see, one more. Extensions. When we grant extension, we talked about this some, Lois, that we should have a planning board form that says your extension is until X date, and you agree that the statutory deadlines reset to the date of your next meeting or reschedule.
I have a question about this. I can't think of any examples where the applicant is under a deadline that we would need to extend. Sometimes we are under.
That's what I'm saying. Our deadline. So if we have an application, it's come into us, and they have it, and we granted, so we've started, and then we have 65 days to finish it. Then they come back and ask for a 60-day extension. Then they come back for a meeting, and if we haven't got an extension on that 65 days, we've got to turn that around in 5 days.
I may be being dense here. Are you saying that we can at some point before, in the middle of the process, we have to grant ourselves an extension, or do we have to get assent from the applicant that they'll allow us to extend?
We're telling the applicant, you want a 60-day extension. We'll give you the 68-day extension, but you need to agree to reset the deadline as of when you come back.
If you want one, we have to get one too.
I don't think there's any examples of when an applicant
is
under a deadline.
No, the applicant isn't. Yes.
We are under the deadline.
I know. So then
the applicant gets a 60-day extension. He's under a 60-day deadline.
No, he's not.
Yeah,
there's no deadline for applicants to do anything.
So if they let it expire, if they let the 60 days go, then we deny it.
Something's upside down in what you're saying. You can't have quid pro quo if one party it doesn't have any.
Yeah, the way I've always addressed this is the applicant. The planning board has a responsibility to issue a decision within 65 days. But as the applicant, you can request continuances. Usually, it's to get information that the board wants. And so the only benefit, what I was always taught, in demanding the board issue a decision in 65 days if they're asking for more information to expedite a denial, basically. Like, you never actually force a board to issue a decision in 65 days if they're asking for more information. But if the board was just like continuing it because it's getting late every night and they're not actually asking for some new information from the applicant, that's an issue. But if the applicant asks for continuance, I don't think you need a written agreement. It's just sort of the applicant is requesting the continuance to get this information for you, and you usually just confirm on the record.
The applicant is not asking for anything. The applicant is saying, planning board, I'm letting you off the hook on your 65 days.
Right. So you usually say just confirm that if you're asking for a continuance to get this information, then you agree that we have this deadline, the 65 deadline, is also going to be.
So we're asking the applicant to let us off the hook by 30.
To allow them to get information. Basically, yes. So you're right. I think
we're not
trying to say the same thing.
An applicant an extension. The applicant is granting us an extension.
It's both because you're agreeing to continue the hearing. So you don't have to agree to continue the hearing.
Explain what just happened.
So this is part of what happened in Nash. In the Nash application, that we accepted as a complete. We were under a 65-day. He asked for a 90-day extension. We gave him a 90-day extension. We did not ask him to extend our 60-day, 5-day time frame.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to lose that in court where the applicant is asking for the time. I think that's just you try to be more clear, and it's helpful to manage people's expectations. So there's an issue.
That's why we ended up with lawyers there and saying that we exceeded our 65 days and we got to go ahead and grant the application.
Well, we can deny it if there's something's the matter, if
Right.
you know,
It's their burden to prove, and that's why normally the way this plays out is we want to continue it because we need more information about A, B, or C.
Well,
And if you don't want to agree to continuance, well, we're going to find that we don't have enough information. You haven't met your burden of proof on
So
whatever
it's not.
factor we're asking.
right, but this was them asking for an extension.
yeah, that's what I never understood. What were they asking for an extension? They were under no deadline.
Well, I think you, in that case, when you said this is complete, you had a list of things that they needed to bring you.
Correct. Yes.
So that's what they were asking for more time in that particular case to get that information to you.
Then they ask for another extension on top of it.
So the point being,
Well, we can give an applicant extensions ad infinitum because we don't really care.
well, our rules say you can only do it once. That's what it says in our rules now.
You can wait.
We didn't know that when we gave them the second one, and we can waive any rule at any time. But
Okay, this is what happens. I'm an applicant and I come in for whatever, okay? And and the board is under a deadline. And you know, I dilly dally and I don't hire my expert and I blah 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 blah, and it's a year later. And okay, it's all on me, right? I haven't asked anyone for an extension, but I haven't done anything. I filed that one thing back when, but I didn't do anything after that. There's no harm to anyone except me.
if we have ruled that the application is complete after 65 days, we're done. They get it. If we don't do anything, if we don't deny it in 65 days, they get it.
Unless the applicant agrees to.
Unless the applicant
So that's
grants
all I'm
the
saying.
board off the 60 days. So we're not granting anything. They're granting.
Correct. But we're granting them an extension also. So all I'm saying is if we make a deal like this, we need to get them to sign that they are extending our deadline.
I don't think you need them to sign it, but we could just make a point that if it comes up in a hearing that you're asking them, so you're like, are you agreeing to this? And it's just reflected in the minutes. So as long as it makes it into the minutes.
That's what they were saying.
I mean,
Well, this is a great thing to ask the municipal association about also.
Perhaps we just should rule things complete if we think that we're gonna need to go back to work.
it's not complete. It's not.
All right, that's all I have on rules of procedure. Input from Agricultural Commission. We had asked the Agricultural Commission for input on PFAS, sludge and recycled, any kind of recycled contaminated material. Mark Stevens called me. I don't seem to believe in written opinion. And as I can recall, said that was a very interesting discussion we had. Of course, nobody wants problems with PFAS, but they had some of the same concerns that were raised in this board, that we are all responsible for creating this mess, and we should all have some responsibility for dealing with it in some way. And that they felt like something like the Belmont regulation, which is to pretty strictly regulate where it can go, how it can go, required monitoring, required reporting, would seem to be more along the lines of what they felt would feel comfortable. Except there was one outlier who said nobody should regulate anything, ever.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, especially if where you want to dump it leads to my well.
Well, it's other business. So I guess that is one thing we have talked about as when we talked about Mike. I should probably something. One of the things we talked about a zoning ordinance for next time.
Yeah, that Belmont ordinance is good.
It seems to be good. Other business?
I had some of the
Yes, you did. You mentioned.
counts is where I need to. And this comes from, I wasn't here last meeting, but I know you talked about roads, and I know I brought up this idea of, class 5.5 roads, probably, because of overdevelopment of back roads. And and I know that, there's pushback from the safety people, but I wanted to provide an example. There's a rule that says once or I don't know, it's like road. I don't know exactly. Maybe it's ASHTO, maybe it's state road, something. But once you're at 1,000 feet, a dead end has to have a. Can you show the other one? Yeah. You have to have a turnaround, and can I just do this?
Maybe. You want to zoom in?
Yeah, I want to be right there.
Okay.
That's bigger.
Where did you want?
No, that spot.
You just want that exact spot.
That spot. Yeah, make that as big as possible.
A combination of the two.
Yeah, right there. So that I rode my bicycle down here, and what developers do in order to comply with the turnaround requirements is you get this. I mean, that's huge. I don't know. You can see the width of the road. The width of the road. This isn't Hampstead, by the way. The width of the road. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4 widths of the road, and it's like this huge round basketball court. Only it's just ugly as shit. It just is. I don't know how to say it any other way. And it's I think it's a really kind of a terrible land use, and I think it derives from the developers' effort to comply with the minimum turnaround that the ASHTO or wherever it comes from, minimum turnaround and
The road standard.
whatever that is, and so there's pardon?
I think it might be the life safety code.
Yeah, so I think that one probably, I know nothing about it in Hampstead, but it probably complies as a minimum. Now, if you had like a minimum radius of a mile, it would go way around, right? No one would notice, and it would just look like, a road with whatever. It wouldn't be like that, right? But that's an effort to, I think, probably to comply with the minimum. And I'm just raising this as one more effect of some of these minimum standards. Like on Hancock Road, where you just have this way too wide area. The walls get pushed. The stone walls get pushed back, and a lot of trees get taken down, and it's just ugly. And there's like so few people driving there, and there's only one residence, and I'm just raising this as an issue, talking about roads. I wanted to demonstrate that, and if you ever want to go on Labrador Lane in Hampstead and look at it, other examples around the state.
So there's I've seen these where the middle was not all asphalt.
That's the other one.
It's a little more appealing, not a lot. It's better
not a
than
lot.
this.
Not a lot.
Yeah,
There's
Not a
your
lot.
putting green.
Well, like you think about something like
That's
one of the smaller
loud.
rotaries in like Concord or even over by Boston, where obviously a rotary has to be big enough for a fire truck to go around it, but they've got a bunch of stuff in the middle that makes them more attractive and less hideous than basketball court.
Another thing about roads that we talk about Hancock Road is canopy. And the way they did Hancock Road was push stuff into the side and clear way back. So I was thinking one thing we could put in our ordinance or in our road standards would be to try to maintain canopy over. It makes a huge difference in the feeling of it. space. Another thing, our cluster ordinance says only one curb cut, only one entrance. Whereas if you could have a loop kind of thing, you back, came off the road and back onto a road.
Well, the other thing is,
It takes up more space and money.
another thing is that both of these examples are probably in a development.
Yeah.
And there's houses, and there's kids. They need a place for a school bus to turn around. I would know.
Right, unless they
Well, depending on how long the road is.
Unless they depend on the length of the road. It's a safety issue. We have winter around here.
Right.
Sure, so that could be an issue as far as bringing kids off way to the end of the road.
Right, but let's say this loop were like this big, then you wouldn't notice it. If it were the minimum radius were much bigger, you wouldn't notice it. Now the topography, this is in Loudon. It just goes down everywhere. There's actually a beautiful view from right here, but I think it's this effort to comply with the minimum that makes
Right.
it.
Well,
It's more
I
aesthetic
agree with
than
you in
I-
terms of aesthetics. There's what does it cost per foot of road? It's an incredible cost to build roads.
Yeah, they're gonna build to the minimum because it's cheaper than building a large.
Also, you need acreage for a house.
Yeah, who owns the spot in the middle and is responsible for taking care of it?
And pays the taxes on
Wasn't that a discussion at Cambridge Drive?
Exactly,
Town
that's
Road?
what it says. We've already got one of these in town. That's Cambridge Drive, and they're doing that. They take it all the way around, and
they made a bigger loop. Yeah.
made a bigger loop, and then the question became who owned the center, whose tax on the center, all that.
And they were supposed to maintain the road originally, and now it's being kind of maintained.
Does look like a way to get some more frontage, though.
Yes, it does.
It's
more
more
frontage, but you need the basic acreage to use the frontage too.
The way to get around that is take and make that loop big enough, put a lot right in the middle. That solves the tax question.
Do you want to turn those?
Yeah, right.
It'd be in a fishbowl. Somebody would, believe me.
What's the development right over here? Pines, birches, spruces. That's like a pretty good size loop, and it doesn't give you the feel of that.
That's true. That's a good example.
Right.
By having it bigger, it doesn't.
And if it's a cluster development, that could be part of the 80% of the land that is open space, right? That's actually Cambridge Drive. That's like that, and that's why they say tax.
So while we're on roads, can I diverge just a little bit to Asby Road? I did take my tape measure.
Did you? How wide is it?
There are two very narrow pinch points, and they are exactly 16 and a half feet, which is the one rock road. Most of that road is 18 feet, some of it 17. A good bit of it is 20. We're finding out.
That is down in that.
Yeah, I know there's sections of that road where I don't want to pass another
Right,
car.
those two pinch points.
Yeah.
It's and
The
right,
level's
right
right
at the
on the
top of the hill
Yep.
where you don't have any
I know.
visibility over
Drive a school bus down.
I ran up that hill on a horse one time and had a truck come over the hill at me. Didn't see it until it was almost on top. Terrifying.
Any other business? Thank you, Joshua. To everyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.